Well, speaking of Brian and his shade throw, and that's one of the reasons we brought this man on right now. So, Brian, go ahead and tell everybody out there who you are, what you're doing. What's the new project you're working on?
Well, I'm making a documentary. And, I guess who I am. Speaking of Hawaii, I'm from Hawaii, born and raised.
Oh,
about to go home in a month. Yeah. I mainly have a tech company. I'm trying to talk about two things. So I got a podcast company. We're building a podcast product for iOS, Android, and the web. It's going to have extra features. You're going to see all the things people are talking about in the app. So they talk about a video. They talk about a movie. You can click on that YouTube video right there. You can see all this information, comment threads, all kinds of extra features. No one cares about podcasts. Apple makes no money off it. They lose money. They're the biggest players in the game, and they're kind of dropping the ball. So we're going to try to take over the podcast world. So I have a team of 4. We have a podcast about ourselves making this podcast called Building Nextcast.
Wow. Talk about slipping down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I have a podcast about me making a podcast. What's the name of your company?
Nextcast.
There you go.
NEX Cast. So we're going to try to have a season 2 of our podcast started up again. But making a documentary about nutrition. And
this is your second project, right?
Yeah, because I'm kind of waiting for us to finish development. So I have some time here. And basically, I saw What the Health, speaking of Netflix. What the Health is a joke.
What the hell?
What the hell?
What the Health is like the worst movie I've ever seen.
Charlatans, lies,
so
Shit,
bad.
Shots fired.
This whole ride over here to Dash, I was listening to.
Spacey produced it.
No.
I was listening to a podcast about.
No wonder it sucked.
There's a vegan lady who tore apart What the Health. Like, it's supposed to be for vegans. And she's saying, hey, this makes us look bad. This is the worst science. You're lying. This is not true at all. Like, why are you making this film?
What are some of the things he said? Do you remember?
He says eating an egg is like smoking 4 cigarettes.
What?
The egg is the perfect food.
Yeah.
Like, if you ask a nutritionist, it's the perfect combination of protein and it's the perfect everything.
Like
They'd
a
say
raw
that
egg with the liquid yolk, or it can be hard boiled.
Any egg, just
Scrambled
any egg.
egg.
Yeah.
hard boiled,
Yeah, just
scrambled.
any egg. They're trying to. It's so bogus. They're saying that meat causes cancer.
I love eggs.
So many people, so many people have bad information in America about nutrition, and I'm not the expert. I've studied it for the past couple of years and very intently for the last 3 months. But there's so much wrong with what people think is nutritious in America, and it's the government's fault for promoting the food pyramid. It's bad science that we all believe. I mean, there's the famous, you can talk about the sugar scandal, 1960s. There's sugar industry paid off scientists to make it seem like fat was causing heart disease and all these problems when it's actually sugar.
Motherfucker.
That's some reefer madness for meat,
dude,
right
but
there.
this is legit.
That's the same scientists that were proven to be experts in the sugar industry as the same people that Big Tobacco hired.
Oh shit!
Right?
It's chills.
But
Yeah.
low
just
key,
paid
like
for
the
scientists.
5-year-old version of me was probably like,
Yeah.
sugar. You tell them, man.
Yeah, so there's a lot of this stuff. So Gary Taubes wrote 3 books on this. He comes on the Joe Rogan podcast a lot. A lot of this I got started just by listening to Joe Rogan. I know Devin did as well. These famous people like Rob Wolf and Mark Sisson. All these people, actually, I'm getting them on the documentary. So I already have 8 people lined up.
That's awesome.
The top names in the fields, 3 New York Times bestsellers. I got, like celebrity trainer, this guy Vinny Tortorich that comes on Adam Kroll's podcast a lot, who wrote a book, and he's awesome. He might work with me to make it, actually.
That's really good. I'm really glad you're doing it because, the way that America and the UK, I feel, the way that we see food is so fucked up. Like, there's the whole thing about, I don't know, I always say coffee is bad for you one week, good for you the next week, bad for you the next,
What is it, Brian?
I was reading an article about that this morning, and it's you can do a lot with statistics and studies and make it say whatever you want, kind of. And with coffee,
where are they being done? And
I mean, coffee is just coffee. Like, it's the most widely used drug in the world, caffeine.
Coffee is just coffee.
And I don't think.
Hold on, but what is coffee?
It's a bean. But if you drink 10 cups, it's probably bad. But
Yeah.
there's studies. There's this Harvard professor. The 2 cups is good for you. It's like he's saying 2 cups is actually beneficial for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't care about coffee. I love it, but mainly it's just carbs and sugar. Carbs is sugar to your body. So a lot of people don't understand. You could ask 100 people in America, which is better, a bowl of whole wheat pasta with vegetables or a piece of steak? And 99% will say the pasta, but really that's just a bowl of sugar with some vegetables.
Yeah, it's funny. I bartended for years, and I remember, bartending school, they teach you that alcohol just turns into sugar in your body, and And so it was always funny when people would come in and they're like, I'm trying to watch my figure, so I'm going to do like a vodka and diet cranberries. Okay, so sugar with sugar with sugar. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Speaking of sugar, Weston A. Price is a famous dentist who figured this stuff out in, I think it was the 20s, where he went around the world and no native populations, all these hunter-gatherers or any modern tribes have cavities at all. And he was like, why do so many people have cavities? And he did all these studies and figured out that it was all these carbs and sugar that we're eating and that it's not natural. And I mean, there's tons of other studies that show that meat is good for you. Meat is what we ate for 2 million years as pre-humans and 300,000 years as modern day humans.
Man.
Yeah, it's so, okay. There's studies like the Maasai in Africa, the Inuit people, a lot of these populations eat meat only for their diet. They're just eating meat and fat, and they have no heart disease, no diabetes, no obesity. And this is how humans were meant to eat. And then they even have studies where some of these people, the Maasai, some of them went off to a different tribe that was more westernized, and they started eating a westernized diet, and immediately they had heart disease, cancer, all these problems. So
interesting.
It sounds so logical and simple to me if you just think about the world, like the way we've been only eating this way for, say, the past 100 years, or even agriculture was 10,000 years ago. But that's still, we weren't eating like all these processed foods and like highly refined sugars and stuff like that.
Well, here's another thing that I found was incredibly interesting about this is we were talking about tooth decay and cavities. Well, when you have gingivitis and you have bacteria in your gums and in your mouth, that bacteria will get into your bloodstream through the pores in your mouth. And when it gets into your bloodstream, it'll pass through your cardiovascular system and actually scrape walls inlining on your arteries. And then that wall that got damaged will build up scar tissue, and that scar tissue will collect cholesterol and then block your artery and become maybe a heart attack. So it's not even that these things are a direct cause and effect. They can be indirect causes of an effect. And, like you said, we did agriculture 10,000 years ago. So why are the Egyptians have rotted teeth? And I got this from listening to Rogan, is because back then they used to bake bread, and the bread that they used to bake had sand in it. So when they would eat the bread, the sand granules would grind down their teeth. But if you look at fossil records from over 10,000 years ago, that's not the case, because they weren't growing wheat and barley and grains. They were eating, hunter-gatherer stuff and picking berries and doing things like that. So
interesting.
I think
sand was the original sugar, OG sugar.
It's not even, but it's like, it's not, this is such a complex issue to unpack that it's not that simple of, this is bad, this is good. I think it's one thing leads to another, and understanding the science behind it, which is the story I think you're trying to tell in your documentary, is really the important part, because like you said, this is complex and most Americans don't know this shit. I didn't know this shit growing up.
I'll tell you one thing though, that one guy who changed that sand into what sugar is now must have been that dude.
This sand.
Sprinkle. Let's be honest with that, but yes. Sugar
what if we had sand but it tastes good?
Like this.
The Egyptians were just drinking too much beer to notice they were eating sand bread anyways.
Yeah, see, I grew up
What you talking about, Joseph?
I grew up around New Orleans, and my doctor told me that if I don't have red beans and rice every day, I'll die immediately.
See, doctors don't even know all that. So many doctors don't get trained on nutrition. Okay, first of all, I didn't even say what it's called. It's called Food Lies. You go to foodlies.org.
Food Lies.
So I got the site up, and it kind of explains, there's this whole story, and there's kind of 3 parts. If you think chronologically, there's the distant past, where our ancestors, we should be looking to them on how to eat, because this is how we became human. I mean, most scientists think that that's how our brains doubled in size over a certain period of time, and a lot of them think it's because we started eating meat and cooking meat, and that's all these. It's way more densely nutritious, and instead of all these, just eating fruits and plants have so little nutrition in them. You have to sit there all day eating. That's why monkeys, chimps, they just eat all day because they're not getting that much from them. And then the meat itself is a nutritious.
But low key, didn't those people back then die at like 40?
That's a great misconception. So I have that on the site right there. It's misconceptions and then what we know.
Lies.
Part of it is because they had
Rumor
a high infant mortality rate. So if you're looking at the average age someone died and it's 35, yeah, because it's like 90% of the kids died at 1 year old.
Yeah, it's because they were living in the fucking woods.
Yeah.
Or like they got eaten by a tiger or something, you know?
Yeah,
like
got thrown off a cliff.
there's a lot of different variables back then that come into play that don't come
that
into play in modern
There
day.
weren't that many tigers, though.
Skydiving accidents with babies.
There was bears. All right, that's all you need.
Okay, back then they mostly died of infectious diseases. There's two ways to die. There's infectious diseases or chronic, like cardiovascular type diseases
so basically
that we die of today.
A caveman wasn't like, oh, my cholesterol. Oh.
Yeah,
they had
the caveman wasn't
cholesterol.
like anti-vax for kids. Like vax is giving
vaccine. You know how there's a Jenny McCarthy death site? Have you heard of that?
Oh,
how
no.
many people she's killed because of her anti-vaccination stuff?
No.
I want to make a food pyramid death site.
Ooh,
how many people have died
I like
because of the government promoting eating tons of carbs on the base of the food pyramid? It's insane.
What was the cavemen's like anti-vax program, you think? They were like, we can't make these fires inside the cave anymore. It's killing us.
Secondhand smoke.
Secondhand smoke. And then ads are coming out about like how fires are bad for you.
The cave drawing ads.
The cave drawing ads, like propaganda. You know this shit happens, man.
They're walking by the little trail. There's like little grave and carvings in the rock. It's
He's
like
angry carving. He's like fucking secondhand smoke. Cave.
There's like some kid coughing in the side. It's like, oh, look what happened to little Pepe.
There's live advertisements as you walk out of your cave, and they're doing little plays.
You have to act
and the
it
kid's
out.
like,
There's a loop. Don't let this happen
this
to
child.
Don't let this happen to little Pepe.
So Brian,
Pepe, no.
Okay.
Brian, what do you think? Let me steer this ship back on course here.